Cruz. Fracassi.
Yes.
Frazier.
Here.
Morris.
Here.
Taylor. Mandelbaum.
Here.
Brightwell.
Here.
Cruz and Taylor excused. Mr. President, you do have a quorum.
Okay, we're going to get started with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chairman, can we have a moment of silence for those 17 young people and people that shot down in Parkland? Mr. Picasso has asked that we do have a moment of silence for the kids in Florida. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Madam Clerk, I would like to open this. The public hearing is open. And if you will sort of queue up in each aisle, and you will have 3 minutes to speak to the mic. And once we indicate your 3 minutes are up, I would like for you to be seated, because we have quite a few people here today, and we want to allow everyone the opportunity to speak. So the first speaker, yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm Vic Doucet, and my wife and I live on Bellwood Drive. I'm a graduate of Southfield Lathrop High School and have lived in Southfield since 2004. I'm a 15-year volunteer with the Miracle League of Michigan, a baseball program for special needs children with a wheelchair-accessible ball diamond at the north end of this very municipal complex. I ask the council tonight, in the strongest possible terms, to urge the Michigan Liquor Control Commission to revoke the liquor license of Bar 7, which has a long and demonstrable record of being a serious threat to public safety. It has been the scene of 2 shootings, a stabbing, numerous brawls, and 37 police runs. That's enough reason to deny it a liquor license. But let's look at what the owners say they will do to combat the issues that have brought us here tonight. Their first claim is that the bar will operate with reduced hours and stop selling alcohol at midnight. That's not a preventative measure, as violence, especially when fueled by alcohol, can occur even in broad daylight. Their second claim is that the bar will no longer use a disc jockey and no longer play rap or hip-hop. This statement is both disingenuous and racist. How music is delivered has no bearing on how people might react to it. Additionally, blaming the music, which is primarily performed by African Americans, as the source of the problem is straight out of the Ku Klux Klan playbook. There's nothing inherently violent about rap, hip-hop, or any other kind of music. The issue's not the music, it's the actions of the patrons of the bar and its ineffective security staff. And what about that staff? The bar owners say they will hire additional security. Why should we believe this would have the desired effect? What Bar 7 has done to this point has not kept the business, its patrons, or my neighborhood safe. Doing more of what hasn't worked and expecting a different result is the very definition of insanity. It's only through luck that the violence endemic to Bar 7 has resulted in injury and not death. The longer it remains open, the more likely the headlines will talk about fatalities and not injuries. We can't allow such a business to remain in our city, creating an atmosphere of violence and fear. We moved to Southfield because we thought it a safe, vital community and a good place to live. Establishments such as Bar 7 mock our beliefs. No good can be accomplished if it continues to operate. What has happened here demonstrates a long-term systemic failure of Bar 7's ability to operate in a responsible manner. We need to put this upholstered sewer out of business before someone is killed. We elected you to handle the tough job of governing a major city. It's time for you to shoulder your responsibility and ask the Liquor Control Commission to take away Bar 7's license. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dandridge Floyd. This is my daughter, Reagan.
For context, on last week, I received an email from Mayor Seibert regarding the compromise being presented to City Council, and for the interest of time, I'll read my response back to his email. I reviewed the current compromise under consideration by City Council, and I'm deeply concerned. Specifically, the compromise, which prohibits the use of a DJ that plays hip-hop or rap music, appears on its face to target African-American patrons and can be seen as a racist gesture to resolving concerns with Bar 7. The tragic events which occurred at Bar 7 are unfortunate. However, to solely attribute them to a particular genre of music, which is overwhelmingly African-American in nature, is dangerous at worst and reckless at best. Southfield, as an inclusive city, must do better than the current stereotype compromise on the table before City Council. Country music fans are not being targeted for the unfortunate events in Las Vegas, which left 58 people dead and injured 850 people. Perspective about this matter is needed, not a broad brush. As a resident, I urge the city to consider the intent versus the impact of the proposed compromise, and I hope that you take these concerns into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I think I might have failed to mention, come on to that, please give your name and address before you start speaking.
Senora Leonard, 27615 Lexington Parkway, and I speak for 288 residents in the Cambridge Village subdivision. The Bar 7 has a reputation for being rowdy, and it lives up to that reputation. I have a friend that went there for a birthday get-together, and when he left, his thoughts were, this is not the place for me, and I will never come back. There's been dozens of disturbances, problems of a serious nature that require police, which is too many. The owners have had countless chances to correct these problems, but have not succeeded in doing so. The owners have used up their chances. Those actions only show a lack of respect for the community. The city of Southfield cannot afford any more of this behavior. Bar 7 is not a credit to the community, it's a dependent. Our police services are better used throughout the city rather than Bar 7 using it all up. Southfield welcomes all businesses that are vibrant and that are a credit to the community. The fights, shootings, a stabbing, Bar 7 is not the type of business that the city of Southfield wants. It's a detriment to society, and we want no more of it. Shame on you, Bar 7 owners.
Good evening. My name is Leon Lucas. I live at 28795 Carmel Drive, Southfield, Michigan. Let me make the first statement very clear. We want them out of Southfield. It makes our city look bad. We wind up in the papers and the news all over Michigan, and it's not a desirable place due to the bad publicity that it puts on our city. 37 calls to one place anywhere in any small city like ours, not as a small city speaking relatively, is too much. It's too much. Secondly, I'd like an answer from whomever might. The parking at that particular place had to be okayed somewhere, sometime, someplace when they opened up, and it's way too small for an entertainment facility. And finally, I represent the Green Tree Homeowners Association, and I have my neighbors with me in support. And I want to emphasize finally that I feel shame when people ask me about the city of Southfield and the reputation, the filthy reputation that we get. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
Porsche Aguilar. I am not one of the owners of Bar 7, but I am...
Sir, your name and address before you begin.
Sorry, Porsche Aguilar. I live in Rochester Hills, Michigan. I am not one of the owners of Bar 7, but I am a relative, so I'm the brother of the owner, and then my mom also has an ownership stake in the business as well. And first and foremost, I want to explain that I understand where the frustration with the establishment is. Again, I'm not an owner, but I've witnessed the pain and the struggle that this has put on our family in watching a lot of this happen. We were born and raised in Southfield. This wasn't something that we had ever expected that our establishment would turn into when we opened this 10 years ago. 9 years we've been in business, never had a liquor violation. When we opened up first, we wanted to be a community bar. This was our community. We sponsored baseball teams. We worked with different charities in and around the community to say we want to be a part of this. And over time, the crowd changed and shifted a little bit. There's a lot of reasons for it. And we put in measures, hired security, those kinds of things that my brother can speak to more. And I understand the outrage and the frustration and the black market puts on the city from a black eye standpoint, but from our seat, it was never the intention. The changes that have been made, that have been put to the city council in terms of a compromise, are significant. A vast majority of the bar's business is done between the hours of midnight and 2 a.m., and that's the time where a lot of the incidents happen. So we're closing midnight, stopping selling. I mean, that's a major impact to our bottom line, but it's what it needs to do to be a safe place that we've determined. So it's not something we're not taking seriously. It's not something we ever expected or wanted to happen. It, to an extent, happened to us quickly as well. And the changes that are being put in place from our seat have already proven to show some dividends. It's been better since the latest incident. So in that way, we really tried to do what we could to try and go back to those roots of what we wanted to be, that Southfield, part of the community establishment. There's a lot of people here today that are regulars, that we feel are our friends. We've been to their weddings. We've been in and around them for years and years and years. These are family members that's always what our intent was when we opened 10 years ago. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. All right, we would please keep the volume down. This is a public hearing. We want everyone to have the opportunity to speak, and we'll be here for a while, and if we have interruptions, we'll be here longer than we should be here. Go ahead, sir, your name and address.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Bern Schwartz, 24289 Lois Lane. I've been a resident off and on my whole life, and it's disturbing to read in the newspaper when you have something that is repeated, offensive, and so I'm opposed to continuing with the liquor license and ask you to support the discontinuance of it, fundamentally for two major reasons. One is just flat-out image. You know, we have a city and we're trying to attract people. We're a great city, and when you have something hits the press that's negative like that, dangerous, it reinforces a lot of negative thoughts that people have about anything, and I think it hurts our city and hurts us property, and you know, you want to attract a lot of millennials, and I want us to have the safest, best, and most enjoyable city. The other one is just flat out cost. I mean, if you have that many, you know, police runs, that's taking time away from other things. I mean, I've had a traffic accident. I couldn't even get a police officer. So anything that distracts from me as a citizen, I think is hurting us as a whole. So it's a very simple message. I appreciate the time to talk and just want to let you know that I do not want to see it continue. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Scully. I grew up in Southfield. I opened my first restaurant on Evergreen and 10 Mile called CK Mediterranean that is still there today. 4 months ago.
Sir, could you give us your business address?
25148 Evergreen Road, 2 blocks south of City Hall.
Okay.
3 months ago, I opened up a new restaurant in Southfield again on 12 Mile and Telegraph, which is 24532 12 Mile Road, and that's right next to Bar 7. As a business owner, I do not see how the business that has been building for 10 years could be held responsible for one person's action. The 37 calls, police calls over 10 years. Nobody's saying that. This was 10 years. 10 years that they invested their hard work, blood, sweat, and tears into the city of Southfield to open up a business in the city of Southfield. I have now opened up my second business in Southfield, and I like it. I love it. It's very pro-business. Now, we're right next door to where the incident happened, and it didn't change anything from our clientele perspective. People still visit us, and I do understand the concerns of the community, but you know, let's state the facts. 37 runs in 10 years. I mean, you know, it's a family business, you know, and they put their whole life into it. And I think you should consider renewing their license from a Southfield business owner. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How you doing today?
Good.
My name is Devon Shockley. I'm the owner of 7 Bar and Grill, located at 24528 West 12 Mile Road. I just waited a little bit to come up. I didn't want to come up be the first one. I just wanted to kind of get the tone of some of the community's opinions. So like my brother stated before, family-owned business, been open for 10 years. I was born and raised in Southfield, attended Southfield Public Schools. So we aren't outsiders. We are from the local community. We opened up in 2008. We've been open for almost 10 years now, and we've never had a liquor control violation. We have had our run-ins, obviously, as you guys have seen with the police reports and Chief Hawkins' report he gave immediately after the incident that happened in December. We have acknowledged that there is an issue, and we've put a lot of precautions in place with the new security, removing the DJs on Friday and Saturdays, no DJs overall altogether, along with closing at midnight has helped dramatically. We've noticed that a lot of our problems were happening between midnight and 2 o'clock in the morning. So that was the common sense approach to take, even though it cuts into our business. When we opened up 10 years ago, we had a concept to be the local neighborhood sports bar, which we effectively were able to do. For the first 7-8 years we were open, we didn't have many issues. We've had great support from the local community. We have a ton of regulars, many of which are here today in our support. We've sponsored softball teams, youth baseball teams. We hold golf outings. We try to get involved with the community as much as we can because we understand how important it is to give back when we have patrons. We want our patrons to be local. We never really wanted to cater to an outside crowd. We wanted to be the local, we wanted to be the Cheers of Southfield. That was always our goal. And for about 7-8 years, it was going great. We never had many issues. But just as of late, for whatever reason, our crowd kind of shifted. And it wasn't because of our concept change. We've always had the same DJs. We've always had the same menu. We've had the same security for 8 years. The same security that was there that night when that happened has been with me for 8 years. So there wasn't a concept change, but obviously something was changing amongst our crowd, whether we became popular with the wrong people or regardless, whatever it was. A change had to be made on our end. And we have put those precautions into place immediately after the second incident happened on December 15th. That following day, we put the protocol into place to close at midnight. We hired a brand new security team, and we got rid of the DJs. And we've seen great results since. I would hope that you would see the support from the community with some of the people to come up here. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Darwin Moore. Currently, I live in Waterford. However, I have lived in Southfield for at least the last 10 years. I'm a patron of Bar 7, and I'm here to say that I understand the difficulties that the folks that live in the neighborhood see. I personally don't think that Bar 7 or any one entity is responsible for what is the black eye that I've heard several times here. I will piggyback on something that Dee said, and that is that Bar 7 truly is the Southfield's Cheers. There are folks like myself who come in after work continuously, been doing it for 10 years, will continue to do it, hopefully with your blessing. I don't think that removing their liquor license or anything is going to prevent if someone wants to act foolish, they're going to act foolish. I mean, it really is as simple as that. The one thing that I did notice, and I'll leave it with this, is that the majority of the incidents that have taken place in Bar 7 have been from outsiders, not from us that love the community and the people who work there. Thank you so much for your time.
How you doing? William Terry. I live in Southfield for over 20 years. First time I've ever been able to speak in front of the council, but I'm here in support. I don't drink, but I go to Bar 7 on a regular basis. I have gone for years. The food is delicious. The atmosphere is great during football games. I take my children, out-of-town family guests. It's just a good place to go. I have never, in all the occasions I've been there, I have never seen any characteristics that would make me say, I don't want to go back there. Now, I know there's been some incidents. I don't know why that happens, but to close down a good bar that serves the community, I would think would be doing it injustice to a place that people from Southfield, as you heard, enjoy. We enjoy the food and the atmosphere, and I think it's a benefit. I think whatever recommendations that the board gives him and he adheres to help with the incidents that has happened in the past, I think that'll be positive. But to close them down, I think that would be wrong. Thank you.
Good evening. I don't want to restate too much of what has been said by others. My name is Mark Scholes, and I am a former resident of Southfield, live in Lathrop Village now.
Could you give us your address, sir?
I'm sorry?
Your address.
17573 Margate Avenue in Lathrop Village. I'm a former resident of Southfield. I'm a retired military officer, and in the Air Force, we had a credo of honesty, integrity, character, excellence in all we do. I think these gentlemen represent some of those same characteristics. What I don't want to do is insult anyone who has expressed the issues and or concerns that they have, because I fought in wars for people to be able to share and express in a democratic way their feelings. But I would tell you that these gentlemen, the way they treat the majority of all the patrons that I know who are either current or retired, professionals, businessmen, military, they're family, all right? They treat us like family. My whole family, from my kids, can't wait for the Michigan State football game so they can go and enjoy the atmosphere at Bar 7. They supported all of any of my kids' activities, from sports. My kids go to UAD Jesuit. One of the owners happens to be a alumni. He supports that. They've supported various sporting events, allowed us to have fundraisers there. So without insulting anyone, I can't speak highly enough for the moral compass and character and what these guys try to do, and they make it feel like home for us, where you can go decompress after a hard day, talk to someone that actually cares about you, and give you back just as much love as you give them by choosing to come to their place of business. All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Trina Johnson. I reside at 31074 Huntley Square, number 201, Beverly Hills, Michigan. I have been a patron from day one. I've been in this area for probably about 10 or 11 years. And to find a nice restaurant and a bar was something I looked for, and I was recommended to that place. The food is great, and I kept coming. The service, the people were beautiful. At this point, 10 years later, Devon, his mom, all of them are like family to me. They've always treated me good. My son comes with me on Sundays. We watch the game, we eat. Sometimes I don't want to cook on Sunday. So that's a place that we go because it's family-oriented and always have been. I'm also a part of one of the softball teams that Bar 7 has sponsored for 9 years. Not that they have to, because they wanted to. And we've brought trophies to them. We've had good times. My team comes there after the games. I also bring my women's committee from my local. We have meetings there on Sundays. We have our meeting and say, hey, where do we want to go? And most of them always want to come back to Bar 7 because of the environment, the way the people are treated. They love it. I love it. My mom doesn't go to bars. My sister had a birthday party there, and we were like, well, Mom is at a bar, but it's a nice bar. You're going to love it. She came, loved the bar. She is not a bar person. So I'm just standing here to let you guys know this is a good family. This is a good establishment. I have not been there where things have happened, the fightings and different things, because I'm not there that often. During the school year, I'm with my son with sports. The summer, I'm there all the time. So I'm here just to support them and not to downplay the things that has happened, because it's a tragedy. It shouldn't have happened. But this bar, this establishment should not be held for other people's actions. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I don't know, is this on?
And lift it up.
Yeah, I'm Nancy Smith. I live at 19570 Villa Drive South in Southfield. And I didn't really plan on speaking, but I feel very strongly about this. I moved to Southfield in about 30 years ago. And I've been very happy here. It's a very progressive city, and I've seen a lot of improvements, but I cringe every time I hear about Bar 7 or read about it in the newspaper. And it makes me wonder whether this is really, I'm retired. I planned that this would be the last place I lived. And I really question whether I want to continue living here with something that is that violent. And I just can't believe that just changing the hours a little bit is going to really make a change. As long as you're serving alcohol, people have, they lose their scruples, I guess. And but I don't think that an establishment like that should be in Southfield. And it sounds as though the family is very nice, but I think they cannot control the clientele. And I think that is what is needed. And I think it's just, they've had all these chances. And I think the time is up, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Yeah.
How you doing? My name is Quincy Green. I'm the head chef of Bar 7. I stay in West Carnegie Park, 26697. And I just want to say, I've been working there for like 8 years, and that's like the best place I ever worked for. I got the best boss. Everybody love everybody. The whole job is like a family oriented, and this is my first time I have to work with a lot of cooks and a lot of employees. They want to come to work. I've been working in Southfield, 12 Mile, Evergreen, Roundshorn, Mr. B's. I've been all around Southfield. I love coming to Southfield. I moved out in Southfield about 18 years ago, and I've been staying here ever since. I love it. And everywhere I'm at, everybody asks for Bar 7. Everybody in my complex, Bar 7 is Bar 7 at, but they love Bar 7. Everybody love Bar 7. I go, I'm in West Bloomfield. They ask Bar 7. They love it. They love the food. They love the customers. They love the employees. It's this a friendly atmosphere, and we can't, it's not our fault when something happened. It's not. And they shooting everywhere. People in school shooting. We just got to shooting. You can't stop everything, it is all about the people that comes in Southfield. I've been in Detroit. I've been in Royal Oak. Shooting. Everywhere you go. But Bar 7 is this a place that everybody gonna go. They love to come here. It was a shooting. They still come here. People still come. You all right? You all right? My landlord, you all right? I'm still there. I'm coming. Now I know people. It's bad people come to places. You know, you don't know who's bad. You don't know who's got this. You don't know who got that. You know, you gotta just live life. You know, because this life is too short right now. You know, and I'm eating off this job. I raised my family off this job. My daughter, I raised my daughter off this job. My kids off this job. All they know is bar 7. They don't know daddy, they know bar 7. You know? So I just want to say thank you for this time for me to come up here and do this. And I just want to say, just come to bar 7. We got the best chef in bar 7. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Fred Anderson. I've lived in Southfield for 31 years, almost 32. And I'm happy to say that the neighbors on either side of me have been here longer than that. And we've kind of made a pact. As long as things were good in Southfield, we stay here.
Sir, could you give us your address?
A little closer? Okay.
Yeah.
My address is 20248 Forest Wood. Okay. I'm also president of the Evergreen Woods Improvement Association. I represent 55 houses. And as I was saying, we made a pact that as long as things were decent and stayed decent, we'd stay here. When things started to slide, we let each other know and we'd be gone. And personally, I want to stay here. I want to stay here until I get ready to go. Now, I followed this in the newspapers, and I do not like it. I don't think it's safe. I don't think, you know, they may be a nice family. They may have a lot invested in the business, but all of that, good food and all that, it's not worth one life. And I go to some of the businesses around there, and I'll tell you, now I look over my shoulder. And I think twice before going in there. And, you know, gentleman was talking about, you know, how nice the place was. I'm 75 years old. I've been to a lot of nice places, a lot of places I like. But they do not have shootings, stabbings, and that type of things and fights. Birmingham has put places out of business, revoked their licenses because of similar incidences, and I think we should too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Your name and address.
Sure. Council, my name is Harold Hill, 22300 Seminole Street, Southfield, Michigan, and a resident for 28 years. And I have been to Bar 7, and they do have good food. I don't know about the chef, but they do have good food. I've been there before, and I'm kind of surprised at some of the incidents that's gone on there, though. I mean, I'm worried about that. But the remedies that I heard, I mean, I was at the council meeting, and they mentioned that Attorney Ward mentioned that as part of the deal, Bar 7 would play no rap music, no hip-hop music should be played, but jazz is okay. I don't think it's the music. It might be the clientele, but it's not the music that's going to sit back and change everything. I heard Police Chief Hawkins mention that there are some things that they're doing, and I hope they are, because if they do stay open, they do need to change. They do need to change, because we love our Southfield, and I plan on staying here. I won't let anything run me away, like a business. That, I mean, we can take care of that. But I just had a complaint about one thing. However, I did not hear about the limitations on anything like a rap, acid rock music, R&B, or country music as a limitation. Those venues have caused problems too, and so that was a concern to me. It's kind of one-sided and restrictive. That seems a little bit biased too. So I want to see things get better at the facility. I need to sit back and see, hopefully they can come to an agreement, and I know the police chief is involved, but if that kind of stuff continues, maybe it's time to switch locations. Okay, have a good one.
Name and
Name
address, sir.
is Lauren Carter. My home is 20265 South Greenway, Southfield, Michigan. Good evening, councilmen and councilwomen. Good evening, residents of Southfield. Mayor. After receiving this email, I sat for a few days to think about it and not let my thoughts or my emotions affect my decision. My main concern is for everyone. I feel like with these compromises being made, there should be a probation period possibly for this restaurant. Not a complete dismissal of the restaurant, but if they adhere to the certain compromises you give, there should be a probation for them and see if that works out. The two other compromises that I agree with is security is a must. The hours should stay the same, but the liquor hours should be put into effect, meaning ending at 12 p.m. The music should be more encompassing, more inviting to different people. The 37 police runs and the shootings and the stabbings. The owner should be in contact with the police. It should be used proactively instead of being used with consequences. He should feel freely to be able to contact the police proactively if he feels something is going to happen. And I don't feel as though him calling the police should be used in consequence. And I believe these compromises, which I stated, will offset the costs. Keeping the hours open to 2, but no serving of liquor, more security. These will offset the costs, so he'll be able to pay for these things. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Yolanda Haynes. I live at 24501 Kenso in Southfield. I first came in contact with Bar 7 when I was coming from out of town, and it was a little late. It wasn't 12 o'clock. And I'd stopped to get some pizza for my kids because it was the first place after being on the road so long that I came to. Well, when I got to the door, I was stopped by this huge guy, 2 hands in front. You can't come in. And I said, what's the problem? He said, you got kids. Well, it wasn't 12 o'clock, so, and I didn't know why. He said it was a bar. Okay, but I didn't understand that, so I guess I wasn't welcome because I had my kids, couldn't leave them in the car, so, okay, it was that kind of bar, what have you. So next time I tried to come, it was a parking lot issue. I didn't feel safe. It's one of those issues where you park, I park, you get my spot, might be some problem. I got back in my car and I left. Last time I've been there. A couple things. The last 2 places we had some problems with in this city have bar behind them. That's an issue here. So we obviously have some problems with bars in our city. Now, the issue there too, to me, is it's in a place where most of the businesses close early. And it's also in a place where most of the businesses have ample parking. That parking is very exhausting there. And if you go around, it's dark. So that's a problem too. I feel like there's a possibility that we are stressing out our police in a situation that we don't really have to when we have places like this. I'm not against the bar, I'm not against businesses coming to Southfield, but I think there's some things that we need to look at even moving forward when having bars and places in our city according to our standards and according to respecting our residents. A family place is somewhere where you can bring your family at any time, not just the people that are there being a family. And we have a standard here in Southfield, and we don't want to be on national news with foolishness. And we don't even want to be in our local paper with foolishness, and we don't want to be labeled with foolishness of these sorts of things. And just like in my household, when things get out of hand, I tighten up stuff. It's like, hey, this is not going to happen here. So if you're in management and you see these things are happening, don't wait for somebody to come to you to say, hey, you need to tighten up your belt. You need to look at some things yourself and say, hey, we need a clean house. You got some scrubs in here that don't need to be in here, clean them out, whatever you got to do. But you got to watch that because, you know, there are times when you invite these type of people, like my grandmother used to say, I can't say the word, she said, I'll just put it like this, manure draws flies. So you got to watch that. And we got to watch that in our city. We want viable places that are growing, that are helping our city, and maybe location is a problem, but whatever you do, whatever you decide, I think it needs to be in regards to the citizens here, the people that pay taxes, the people that live around here, and also supporting the businesses, but mainly the residents here who want to stay here and who want to live here and want to see places that we all can come to, or if we can't come to, we want to invite somebody, or we don't want those type of people in our neighborhood. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
My name is Leslie Ashford, and I'm at 15959 New Hampshire Street, Southfield. I've been a resident of Southfield for about 11 years. I didn't expect to stand and speak either. However, I feel it necessary to respond to the letter I also received from the mayor. The thing that caught me off guard was that the rap music thing, and in our current climate of nationalism and anti-people of color, it's a very hostile environment that we're living in, and for somebody to say that's a solution to end of music that is typically identified with African Americans, I have a problem with that. That's not a solution, and I'm very surprised that people can overlook that and say that that's okay, that I will continue to patronize you even though you're coming up with a solution that's bigoted. That is my number one problem. Rap music, hip hop, you know, there's places that play it that don't have violence. There are other bars in the city of Southfield that don't encounter these issues. So there is something wrong. I think that all too often in our country, the citizens, our voice is not heard. Big business, money seems to speak. Lobbying seems to speak, and we're all just a bunch of weaklings in the United States right now. So I would like the council to take into consideration each and every citizen who lives here, who wants to stay here, who wants to raise their children and grandchildren here. We have the power, okay? We are paying our taxes, we love our city. People who are having businesses here that live elsewhere, they don't deal with the property value issues. And I've also recently opened a brokerage here in the city, so property values are very important. And it's a serious business. They go up and they go down. It just takes a little bit to tip the scale. And when you talk about gun violence in our current climate in the United States, people want to run for safety. I don't want to see that happen to this city. It's got a long history, a rich history, and we need to preserve it. And sometimes you have to bring down the hammer. And I think that, unfortunately, I hear everything and I understand everything that the family is saying. I understand business. I love entrepreneurship. However, sometimes bad things happen to good people or good businesses. And as a community, I think we need to stand up and not sit here and say business rules. I'm tired of that. We're individual Americans, residents of Southfield, and we want to keep our city a welcome and safe place. And I don't want our police force strapped with one location, okay? So that is my position. I'm sorry that it's a big challenge for the family, but we live here, and I'm sorry, I think the residents of Southfield trump on this issue.
Your name and address, please.
Hi, my name's Roger Zapinski, and I live at 29961 Bermuda, north end of the city. And I think the one thing that to kind of summarize what several people have said, that in my feeling, image is everything. Southfield, image is everything for Kasi, Silver, and so forth. And a lot of people have worked hard in my neighborhood. I know Mr. Lucas, I know a lot of my neighbors. Image is everything. And I think because of that, if someone wants a quiet hamburger and to be served politely, go to Mr. Joe's. You know, that seems like a good choice. It's right down the street. But I think because of that image and because of mistakes in management, I think their time is up.
My name is Timothy Owens. I live at 25586 St. James in Southfield, Michigan. I am a longtime patron of Bar 7, as you can see. They support a fallen member of what we call our family. Died in a car accident 4 years ago. Okay. And they support us with the annual golf outing to memorize it. All the things that they're talking about as far as the music, the rap music does draw a peculiar crowd. And that's what the rap music is about. It's not about the color. It's about the crowd that it draws. The parking issue, parking is an issue everywhere. But they have ample parking. People just don't want to walk that far. I've go in there sometimes and I have to park way farther than I want to. And I go in and I say, hey, man, I could have just walked from home. But I've never felt uncomfortable in the bar, early in the day or late at night. I've been to a lot of other establishments where I've seen fights nobody mentions. Incidents is right across the street at Fridays, which was a big incident. People shooting through the windows. You don't have that kind of action. Nobody wants to mention all the things that happen to the other bar institutions around here. They happen. People who want to do bad things are going to do bad things. You can't see them coming. Just like at the school, they knew there was a problem with him, but they didn't see him coming. So I think they do their best, and I feel safe all the time. And I'm sure if you came in there, you feel safe and welcome.
We have the other speakers. Mr. Mayor.
I frequently talk about something called the Southfield Standard, and what has taken place here.
Mr. Mayor, could you give us your name and address for the record?
My name is sorry, Mr. President, following protocol. My name is Kenson Siver. I live at 18410 Magnolia Parkway. I'm a 51-year resident of the city of Southfield, and I've been in elected office here for 17 years. I frequently talk about something I call the Southfield Standard, what is appropriate for our community. The incidents that have happened at Bar 7 run in contrary to what I think our residents expect in our city. They want safety, they want well-maintained city streets as well as good city services. I do not feel that the things that have occurred at Bar 7 are isolated incidents. There's been a pattern of violent behavior there. They have ignored the suggestions of the Southfield Police Department in the past. And while it's all well and good that they provide, have a family atmosphere and they provide and support this and that, I'm looking at a bigger picture. Since these headlines were made, I've heard from scores of Southfield residents and businesses and from people in neighboring communities. And I agree with the speaker who said it's all about image. Yes, some of these things happen in other places. And yes, Birmingham has closed bars. Dearborn, Royal Oak has had similar situations. That doesn't mean that we have to allow this to continue here. Earlier this evening, or at the beginning of this proceeding, I put on your desk, and this came not at a suggestion from me, but rather from the City Center Advisory Board. City Center Advisory Board brought this up on their own accord. And for those who don't know what the City Center Advisory Board is, this is a body that is made up of leading real estate interests and businesses in Southfield, and they provide 5 cents per square foot, which amounts to hundreds of thousands of dollars for extra amenities in this city. Much of what you see on Evergreen Road, Civic Center Drive, Northwestern Highway, Eat to the Beat concerts, on, the things that they do are about promoting Southfield. On that board are some of the leading businesses. Durr, Eaton Corporation are members of that board. Lawrence Tech, a major stakeholder in our city. Shostak Brothers, Redico, Etkin Equities, Transwestern, which is the whole town center complex. And their unanimous opinion is that this liquor license should be revoked. They feel that all of the things that they have done to attract businesses, attract residents, to get people to invest in Southfield are undone by the headlines that this bar has generated, with several shootings, bar brawls, and stabbing. It is no secret that I personally feel as mayor, and I don't vote on this matter, but as mayor and as a resident, that enough is enough, and this liquor license should be pulled.
My name is Sarah Habbo. My address is 29245 Marshall Street in Southfield. And honestly, if the city council is okay with giving Bar 7 a chance to continue under the recommendations and restrictions that the agreement that you guys have sent out would include, I am strongly against the restrictions on the specific music type. I think it's unfair and difficult for the police to actually be able to practically enforce this. How would you be able to enforce whether hip hop or rap is being played in the bar? Realistically, unless you have an officer sitting there, and are we going to count Taylor Swift with Kendrick Lamar as hip hop, or is that pop music? I think it's really arbitrary, and I hate to say it this way, but I think we have to call things what they are, and it's racist, and I think we're trying to use other terms for it to be polite to one another, and we don't have to be polite about things like this. Rap and hip hop music themselves aren't inherently violent. The people who listen to rap and hip hop music aren't inherently violent. If you look across the board of the music types that are listened to, violence happens, and that's a bigger issue than just the type of music. The issues that we have involving violence are bigger than this one bar, and I don't know that the restrictions that are included may necessarily quell all of the violence, but it's impossible to stop violence. I mean, we've had 18 shootings in 2018 already, and we haven't even finished February, the shortest month of the year. So we have an issue of violence in this country. I don't think it's Bar 7's fault, and I would support allowing them to continue to remain in the community and have their liquor license so long as they meet these restrictions, and if the restriction regarding the music is taken out completely, because that just to me seems arbitrary, and the impact it would have would be racist, and honestly I think someone would get sued. So we don't want to waste city resources on something that's incredibly arbitrary and may not actually impact whether there is or isn't violence in the community. A lot of people like the food there, a lot of people like the environment. Someone said that it's 37 calls within 10 years. I mean, let's do math. That's not very many per year. Problems happen. If they're taking active steps, proactive steps to resolve the issues going forward, I understand the city council deciding to make that decision. I respect the city council and the people that are on there, and I think that you guys would make a good decision however you go. Thank you.
Public hearing is still open. Any other speakers? Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. We would like to have the chief of police to make some comments relative to this.
Good evening, council, mayor, city clerk, and members of the community. As you know, when these incidents first started occurring in our city, I was and still am as outraged as anybody about these incidents. When many people here today talked about the drain on the resources of the police department, and they're absolutely right. And just for correction, it wasn't 37 over 10 years, it was 37 incidents over a span of 4 years. And what we were seeing was that the incidents were increasing in frequency and in violence during the last 2 or 3 years. But I think we got to back up a little bit, because I think the city attorney is going to talk a little bit about the process that we have to go through with this potential liquor license revocation, and the reasons why this recommendation to allow them to continue under these some of these conditions were made. And as council knows, and as the city attorney, I'm sure is going to explain to the to our audience and our members of our community, the city council will be making a recommendation to the Liquor Control Commission for this to happen. So it seems that there's some may be misunderstanding the process tonight and thinking that the city council will actually be stripping the bar owners of the license, and that's not the actual process. And so, but going back, we looked at what was happening with the first shooting that they had, and what we found, and what I found from looking at some of the other incidents that we were seeing in our city, was that something was different in this place. We've got establishments that sell alcohol all over our city, but we were not seeing the types of incidents with the types of violence that we were seeing at this particular location. So we needed to find out, what was it about this place that was drawing this type of violence, that was so different than anything else that we were seeing? And what we found was that the atmosphere and the environment in this place was a lot different than what we were seeing in most of the other places that we have in our city. Fact of the matter is, they were drawing a crowd that was much different than what we were seeing anyplace else. And and I know, some folks here, some members of our community brought out the fact that, that some of the things may have been race-based or bias-based. But the way I saw it was nothing like that. I saw it as individuals who were demonstrating bad, poor, violent behaviors. I didn't see color with this. We were seeing some bad behaviors from individuals in this place. And what we found is that this was not a bar. It had turned into a nightclub. We basically had a nightclub right in the heart of our city. And that is not what was intended for that particular location. And this nightclub atmosphere was drawing individuals who wanted to come in to party, so to speak. And they just didn't have the accommodations to handle that type of crowd. Nightclubs work in some places. I mean, you got nightclubs in other cities. We have had some in our cities before. But if you're going to have a nightclub, you have to have a much different model, a security model, in order to accommodate that. And so we saw this disconnect between their actual model and where they were trying to have this type of business. And so we got with them after the first shooting, and we gave some recommendations as to what could be done. And one of the recommendations was you need to change the type of music that you're playing in your place if you want to survive. And you have to change security and some of those things. And it worked. It worked for a short period of time. Then for whatever reason, they reverted back to that old model, and we had this other incident. And so now we're back almost where we were a few years ago. And so council, what I think will work in this instance is for us, these conditions that have been laid out, that the bar owners have agreed to, in my professional opinion, I think that at this point, that's something that can work right now. For me, it's about the safety and security of our people in our city. It's about, do we have an establishment that will be a public nuisance, that will be a public safety hazard to the individuals who live, work, and play in our city? Under that old model that they had, absolutely, they would have been a public safety hazard to this city. What they have agreed to with this agreement, in my opinion, I think that they will be no more of a public safety hazard than any other establishment that we have in our city that sells alcohol. As I've talked with the owner of the establishment before, he has a responsibility to have a model that does not attract individuals who want to come to our city and create chaos. My professional opinion, I think that by them adopting this new model, that we won't have those types of problems, and there's no heightened risk of those types of problems occurring in our city any more than they are any other place that we have. I'm willing to accept any questions that you have regarding this, Council.
Well, let's have the attorney make her comments, and then if there are questions, we will ask them.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the chief indicated, he had strong feelings about what kinds of things were occurring at this establishment that, in his professional opinion, he thought was the connection, the nexus between the issues that were happening. And so based on that, and based on even before this agreement was even developed, the establishment changed their operations, and they sent out through social media pretty much these kind of conditions to their customers, because I think they recognized that they had an extreme problem there, and that they need to provide a safe establishment for their own customers as well as for the city and for our residents. So I think that is kind of the genesis of how this potential resolution of this issue was developed. Chief is absolutely right that it is the decision only of the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. So whatever City Council did here was purely a recommendation. Whether the Liquor Control Commission would agree or would say, no, we think that we're gonna let this establishment keep their license. I think the concern from the chief and our perspective was, then is the establishment free to just operate whatever way? Does this make sense for the city and for the residents of the city to have, in effect, the items that the chief feels and the police department feels are so important for how this establishment should operate? And all this does, someone mentioned a probation. In essence, that's what this is. If these terms and this compromise is not abided by the establishment, the city specifically states in here that it'll move forward under the ordinance and move forward with the whole process. And so I think this doesn't give up that right. This preserves it. If we don't see that this establishment becomes safe for not only the customers but for the residents of the city, then the city has the same avenue to pursue that it has right now. And one thing I would say that I think we recognize, and I think exactly as the chief said, nobody saw color or race in these discussions of the type of music. It was a certain crowd that it was attracting. We did talk to the establishment through their attorney, and we have revised the wording. It no longer says no hip hop, no rap, but what it says is that we need music that is focused and directed to more of an adult contemporary music, so that we are looking at things like jazz. Some rock is fine, but things that are more adult, mature adult oriented. And so the language that I think was bothersome, and I understand that, and that was never the intent, but that has been removed. And the concept that I think that the bar understands is that they're trying to get a much more mature type of customer base in there. And then the fact that they're closing at midnight, which I think was important for the chief also, because a lot of these incidents were in that late hour period where most people that are just going for a burger or a beer, they're home because maybe they have obligations the next day. So I think that all in all, that the design of this potential resolution was to protect not only the customers, but the residents of the city and protect the image of the city. And so with that, obviously, the council under the ordinance that you're pursuing this under, you do not have to make a decision tonight. You could, there is a provision in the ordinance that you have 60 days to make a decision. You could decide tonight that you want to adopt the proposed resolution. You could also indicate, you know, we're not satisfied. We may want to go forward with some type of communication with the Liquor Control Commission. If that is the decision of council, though, obviously, our ordinance requires us to go through a due process hearing with the bar and their establishment, and they have an attorney. So I would request that if that's the line or that's the path that council desires to take, we really need to then just adjourn this hearing and go back to a full due process hearing, which gives the bar the opportunity to cross-examine the police department, anyone that wanted to testify against the operations of the bar. They would have the right to pursue and put on witnesses and introduce documents, and it would actually be almost a judicial process prior to the council making a recommendation to the Liquor Control Commission. So that's kind of where we are, and those are kind of some of the options that council has before it tonight.
Okay. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Vicato, let me make one statement here.
There's some information before you make a statement.
Well, go ahead.
Sue, you gave us another copy.
Yes.
Could you tell me what changes you've made from the one
change
that we
was,
had?
The change was on page 2, section 1A. You will not see the words rap or hip-hop in terms of the music that is prohibited.
Give me that slow.
1A.
Yeah, he
1A.
got that, but I'm looking for the item.
Page 2.
Yeah,
1A.
Got it.
And it would be the second sentence that changed. So the requirement of no DJs or the like, that's still there.
Okay.
But this would now indicate that they have to play music which is focused upon and directed to a more mature audience consisting solely of jazz, Motown, rock, other similar mature adult contemporary music.
I just want to make sure I caught the difference between these two. I didn't get a chance to read it. Go ahead.
Okay. The council last week agreed to this particular resolution tonight based on, I'm going to reiterate, the professional opinion of our police chief and our city attorney. As council people, we rely on the staff quite handily because we are obviously not the expert. And all across the city, we have experts in every area of the operation of the city. So we did agree to this particular resolution with the understanding that if anything did go wrong or not in accordance with this, there would be swift action to make that correct, to correct those particular actions. And they did remove some of the triggers that they think was creating the undesirable conduct. And in doing so, the council at that particular session felt that our overall concern is the success of all our residents, the success of all our tenants, the success of all our proprietors and business owners. This resolution that we came to is a win-win for all those elements in the city of Southfield. And we're relying on obviously the professional opinion of our staff. And that is one gigantic piece of information that we have to, in essence, take under consideration. And it's not necessarily emotions, but it has to be, fact-based. And we have two learned professionals that have expressed their opinion to council. And I hate to say this, but if those opinions are not valid or is proved to be wrong down the road, obviously their word to us in the future will be not, taken very they would be taken lightly. So with that, council, I will open up any other questions that you might have.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
One of the issues that they agreed with is to install cameras in the vestibule. And I'd like to know a little bit more about the kind of cameras that will be installed, including, and ask if cameras inside the establishment itself will be installed, or unless they're already there. Are they recording type cameras, or are they just still pictures? Will they be able to show activity that takes place so that if something happens, that you know how it got started, and how long will those pictures be retained so that cooler heads can analyze whatever data comes up on the cameras?
My understanding, Councilman, was that obviously crime prevention in the police department works with people on those type of security measures, and that would be something that they could meet with the establishment and decide, and maybe the chief wants to weigh in, but that was my understanding of how it would work. And they could talk about specifically what type of cameras, just as you're indicating.
Okay, because I've seen things on television, you know, have you seen this person? It looks like something that I drew when I was in kindergarten, you know?
Sure.
So.
Ms. Morris?
Chief, I do respect your opinion. I have a question for you, though. As it relates to the music, there's a lot of focus on the type of music, but I was wondering if there was any concern about the volume and how loud the music is played. Sometimes that kind of gets people riled up as well, and is that, I didn't see that in here, in the language, Sue, and I don't know if that's something that you would want to consider, but in your opinion, is that an issue?
Yes, I think that's an issue also. Type of music, because they were drawing a crowd of individuals who had no respect for law and order and were demonstrating bad behaviors. And a lot of it was tied to the type of music that they were playing. And volume definitely had something to do with it. But I think the type of music that they were playing in that place had just as much or more to do with it as well.
Okay. Is that, do you think the volume makes a difference? Is that something that we can add?
I would have no trouble adding that. It's just, it's a difficult standard. You know, what's too loud probably varies from one person to the other without maybe putting some kind of specific scientific calculation on, you know, what the audible level is. I think part of it may be that, I would think, maybe the DJs with their systems, the speaker systems, would probably be louder than what they're going to be able to transmit over just their normal system, because DJs, at least in my experience, are typically louder.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I just want to add also, during this period of time, these last 2.5 months or so, I've had officers in there doing compliance checks, and his folks probably didn't even know that they were there. I've had undercover officers in there monitoring the place and seeing what the atmosphere has been like since they've put these other measures into place. And from what my officers are telling me is that it's a whole different environment. It's totally different. We haven't had any calls for service at all at that place over the last 2.5 months. I've heard anecdotally from people who have gone in there during this period of time since they've adopted these changes. And again, it's a more mature crowd that's going in there.
Well, I had never been to Bar 7 before. I went there yesterday for lunch. The food was great. It was a really wonderful atmosphere. I really enjoyed it. But, you know, my duties are to serve, you know, the residents. And so I just have, you know, I'm inclined to, you know, support the agreement, but I also, you know, I feel strongly about this. I agree with the mayor that we really need to look at considering doing something, in reference to this operation.
Yes, and I also want to add, too, that going forward, if council adopts this, we will have frequent compliance checks of this establishment. Not just this one, but all other establishments that we have across the city. And if there are any violations, if they stray at all from what's been agreed to with this, then there will be prompt action and prompt recording to council so that council can make the appropriate decision as to whether or not the body wants to, at that point, go forward with a recommendation for revocation. But I will have my officers in there frequently doing compliance checks of the place.
Mr. Fakasi.
Yeah. I don't need your chief.
Okay.
Let me start by saying that to everyone here and those who may hear that we met this evening, that I've lived here almost all my life, and my wife graduated from Southfield High School. I raised my family here. I got half my family still living here, and I'll never sit here and tear the city apart. We have one of the most fantastic cities of any city in the state of Michigan. And one just has to sit back and learn a little bit about what this city does, the people who sit up here, and the mayors and legal. Every day they are short of staff, but they make everything work. And I sit here and hear some of the people say, well, because of this, I don't know if I'm going to stay or not. I'm going to tell you that this is a safe city. It always has been a safe city. Incidents do happen. And, I'm looking at the chief of police, and we've got one of the finest police departments in the entire state. I look at our fire chief, Johnny. How many emergency runs did you have this year to set a record? Say it a little louder. I want these people.
14,000.
Yeah. I mean, nobody has had lives that have been saved because the fire department has been there to help them out. This group started in 1972. They're the first ones in the United States to have anything like this program. You look at the city administrator and engineering. We had the largest construction season. Fred, can you how many miles of roads did we do this year ahead of anybody in the county? Yeah, did we do new construction? How many millions of dollars? See, some of these things we just have to get out to the city. Everyone who knows what the city is about, and I'm sure that those who spoke know what the city is, and I'm so very, very proud of each and every day, and it's a safe city. Incidents will happen. I remember way back when AMC had a shooting, Star had a shooting, Red Lobster had a shooting. I mean, these things happen. These things happen. Open up the paper and see what happens to other cities. Here you had a safe city, Parkland, right down in the heart of Florida. They had one of the top 10 cities in the country as far as safety. You can't sit back and say we won't have incidents. We will. But how we deal with it, and we don't have to have a hearing to deal with it. You have professional people up here that sit here each and every day that see all these situations come before them and they deal with them. And they bring these things to the city council and mayor when they come up and ask us to help them resolve these issues. The chief was just before us Monday, was it Monday night? Telling us about what he proposed to do in this situation. And each and every time that we have to address a situation like this or any other situation, we deal with it. And we don't, get our linen in public. We go ahead and we get the job done. And it can be the apartments that are having problems. We don't sit back and not take care of it. Administrators right on top of it, building departments on top of it. I mean, we are seeing these situations in the city and we deal with them. And I think the people in this city have to know it. and be very, very proud every day they wake up that we have the city that I believe deals with everything, services beyond anybody's belief. And if you don't believe it, get into the city and see what they do each and every day, the amount of money we spend in behalf of our residents and businesses, and how many businesses have picked Southfield, the center of it all, to come here. We have a $32 million building being built over at Inkster and 11 Mile Road. The $32 million, and they keep coming. Why? Because they know that the city of Southfield is a great city. It's the center of it all, has easy access to the airports, easy access to downtown Detroit, anywhere they want to go. The center of Southeast Michigan population today is at Northwestern and I-696. We have highways that traverse through our community, and many, many people not only come here to work and to live, but thousands and thousands of people come through our community. And you don't hear anything negative about it. We take care of their accidents, we take care of their children, we take care of their homes, we take care of their businesses. So be proud of the city of Southfield.
Mr. Mandelbaum.
Yes. There were a lot of comments made by residents, many comments by patrons of Bar 7, although I'm confused if it's Bar 7 or 7 Bar and Grill. But, I just want to comment on some of the things that were said. It was mentioned, that Fridays had a few incidences. And I know that in that situation, our police chief went over there, talked to them, and the behavior changed. I know that before we got to this point with Bar 7, that our chief went and spoke with the owners of Bar 7, and things changed. And as he mentioned, they kind of reverted back to the situation that we now find ourselves in. I don't necessarily think that taking away a bar's liquor license when they are putting in writing versus verbally saying something, but that they're putting in writing changes that they're going to make to how they operate their business, I think shows shows the city, shows the residents, our police chief, and those officers that are responding to these issues, that they're serious about changing their ways. That being said, when the chief made a recommendation that we have a hearing to potentially ask the Michigan Liquor Control Commission to take away the license, there are a couple of things that he pointed out, and I want to make sure that, I'm pretty sure that the bar owners have seen this, but I want to make sure that they really understand why residents are so upset. There were, I think the number changed, but 32 incidences in the last 4 years. I know we've heard 37, 32, but over 30 issues. Many of them happened in the parking lot. Some happened in the entranceway to the bar. Some involved gunfire. Some inflicted serious bodily harm on patrons. And part of the issue is that things have escalated in the last 2 years. I think now that the bar sees that we are serious about how their patrons are, for whatever reason, that their patrons are acting the way they are, I think is something that as a council member, I consider the fact that they're willing to put in writing that they're going to change their style. They're going to cut operating hours. They're hiring different, as the agreement says, appropriately trained and professional security. That they are making changes to how they act, I think says a lot about that they're serious, and that they know that the city is serious about these issues that are occurring. I've been told by residents, I've been told by former residents, people who have never even lived in Southfield, that they've heard about some of these issues. I believe Councilman Fracassi mentioned, that there were issues at the Star Theater, that there were shootings there. We mentioned Fridays. There are issues, and they are usually not sporadic, they're not frequent, and we do have a very highly trained professional police department that responds to the issues and works with residents, with the business owners, the business community, to try to prevent those issues from happening in the first place. And when they start happening, work to try and stop those from continuing. And I think that the changes that are being proposed, and this was not something that the city went out, this is something that the bar owners came to the city and said, we want to stay here. We don't want to potentially lose our license. We will make these changes. This is not something that the city went out and asked for. And I think that that's something that's saying that they're being serious. The bar owner, when he spoke, he mentioned, there were 7 or 8 years of no issues, no problems, and then something happened. Whether it was, I don't know if they've had a DJ the whole time or that's something that added, but, hopefully we can go back to those 7 to 8 years of no issues. And as the chief mentioned, his officers have been there, plainclothes, walking through, looking to see that things are being upheld to what his recommendations are. I mentioned this to our city attorney the other night when we were discussing this, and I want to bring it up again about when alcohol is served. In the agreement, it says no alcohol, liquor, beer, or wine shall be sold or served after 12 o'clock midnight, as that's the closing hour, and all patrons and customers will be off the premises no later than 12:30. So I guess my question is, similar to baseball, where they stop serving alcohol at after the seventh inning, why does the agreement not have a 15 or 30-minute prior to them closing last call versus we'll stop serving alcohol right at closing? I understand that patrons may stick around a little bit, linger, finish whatever their discussions are, their dinner, but I was just wondering why there's no last call prior to them closing up shop.
So I think that the intent was that last call would be, 1:45 to midnight, 10 to midnight. That's your last call, as opposed to 2 o'clock or so, which would, be typical. So they would make that last call. Somebody could be served. So if somebody said, I wanted a beer, they could serve that as long as it was before midnight. The person then has 15, 20 minutes, finish up their beer, and everyone's got to be out by 12:30. I mean, I think that's kind of how this was envisioned to work. So I do see a last call. I just think the last call is going to be probably, and I don't know, maybe you could even ask the operator, if last call is approximately, 11:45, that means then that gives them 15 minutes to serve that drink, and then the person's got to finish up and be on their feet out the door by 12:30 at the latest.
Would you care to speak? Yes, please. Sure.
Yes, so since we adopted the closing at midnight, we have been doing last call at 11:45. Lights go on at 11:50, and right around midnight, our security announces that we are closed and it's time to leave. But like you said, people continue their conversations, wrap up their meal, cash out their tab, use the restroom one last time. But by 12:10, 12:15, my security is, since we've adopted this, is usually locking the front door with only staff left in the establishment. So since for the last 2 months, we haven't had any issues with it. No alcohol gets served after midnight. It's been a very strict policy we've enforced. But yeah, so about 15 minutes before midnight, 11:45, is when our staff will do their last rounds, announce to the customers that this is their last opportunity to grab a cocktail or a beer. And at 11:50, the lights go on, signaling that it's time to go. At 12 o'clock, security will then announce that it's the establishment is closed and escort whoever's remaining out the building and lock the front door.
So I guess to make me feel better, is that something that you would potentially be willing to add into add a sentence to that?
Yeah,
with
sure.
With those procedures?
We have no problem with that. We've already been enforcing it as of right now, so it wouldn't cause any problems for us.
So you would like to see something that 11:45 is last call?
11:50, lights go up, and then at 12 o'clock, they announce they're closed.
They're closing. Okay?
It's been the procedure in place now. We'd have no problem agreeing with it on paper.
And then another question I had, I know the chief mentioned this, that you have a different security personnel.
Correct.
Are they, again, are they identifiable?
Yes, they're wearing a Bar 7 t-shirt. It does not say security on it, but they are a staff member at the front door. They make themselves known immediately when someone walks in with either a greeting or if it's after a certain time, especially on the weekends, we've enforced pat-downs, stuff that I will be discussing with the chief of police moving forward as far as certain procedures go with pat-downs and searches, legalities of certain things there. But he is at the front door at all times after 8 o'clock. So he's at his post. Right when you walk in, he's the first person you see. He will greet you. If he feels like he needs to pat you down, he will. And obviously checking IDs of anyone who may look underage. So he's the first person a customer will see when they walk in the establishment.
And how many security guards do you have?
Right now, because we're trying to create just a relaxed environment and we're not overpacking the place and it's not as rowdy, we just have our one guy at the door right now. We only are seeing about 45, 50 patrons in the place at one time. With a relaxed environment, it's definitely sufficient at this time. If we see an increase in volume of customers in there at one time, we will add additional security. He has a full staff, but as of right now, he feels comfortable in his professional opinion that he can handle it if there were to be an incident. We don't allow large groups of people in there anymore. We don't do reservations, birthday parties. We've never done bottle service. We've never done any of those things, but since we don't, it kind of helps create a environment where it's not large groups of people that he may have to contain at one time if something were to happen. So that's the process right now with one security guard at the door. If we do continue to, the volume of business picks up over the time, we will be adding additional security at certain locations in the bar.
And this security guard is different than what you've had previously?
Correct. We had a security team for 8 years prior. He is a completely different security guard, completely different security team. He seems more well-trained. He executes pat-downs. Seems a little more professionally than my previous team. My previous team may have gotten a little too comfortable dealing with the same patrons over the last 8 years, knowing everybody by name. Our crowd is a very regular-based clientele, so he's seeing the same people all the time, which may result in a little bit of comfort, which may have been a reason why certain things may have happened. But my new security team seems to be a lot more on top of things. We've gotten positive feedback from customers of old and newer that have come in. Have definitely shed light on the improvements as far as security goes.
Just a couple more, and then I'll be done. I'm assuming that our fire marshal has gone in and has done, prior to you opening, a count of how many patrons you're allowed at one time.
Sure.
Do you know what that number is offhand?
Yeah, our capacity is 75 people. That's how many we have. I believe 60 actual chairs for people to sit between the dining area and the actual bar, and there's just a little bit of standing room that we would overflow if we were to reach capacity. But at this point, we're actually being a little stricter, especially on the weekends, Friday and Saturday, in light of all the recent events and us trying to rebrand and restore our image of just kind of keeping it around 55, 60 people, fill in the actual chairs and kind of get away from the standing room, people kind of standing around looking over at people. Seems it could be something that can cause a problem.
And then I guess my last comment,
Sure,
rather than question, is, I hope you heard that what the residents of the city have had to say and their thoughts about what is taking place in your establishment, and hopefully this will also be another reminder about what we're looking for in the city as the Southfield standard.
Definitely. I delayed on coming up. I didn't want to be the first person to speak. I wanted to hear from a lot of the people before I came up. We completely understand the position you have had to take, the police chief has had to take. We are looking to, have an open line of communication with the city council, with the police department moving forward. We do not plan on backing down from this agreement, going back to old ways. We wanted the perception and the reality of it. You saw from some of our patrons who are actually in there, who kind of see the reality of what we are, rather than the perception that you may hear on the news or get from maybe outsiders who haven't come. So we want to have that reality be our perception, where everybody understands that this is a community place for the locals of Southfield, the cheers of Southfield, which we always were for the longest period of time. I wanted to address your camera issue just because you had brought it up. Well, we did get a quote. We have 12 cameras already existing in the establishment. The quality is average to below average. We are upgrading to 4K cameras, Ultra HD, as well as adding the 4K camera in the vestibule as well, just to clarify that for you as well.
I believe he also questioned, they're recording capable?
Yeah, they're hooked up. They're on a DVR. You get 2.5 weeks of recording. So if an incident does happen, you can capture it. It has happened in the past where we've helped the police department. They've come in right away, hooked in their USB in, and captured whatever time frame they need to, and it's saved forever for them. But we have a couple week window where we can capture anything that may, either an incident that has happened or something suspicious that they may need to look at.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
To the city attorney, though, this resolution that we are considering will be filed with the Liquor Control Commission?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it will. Number one, because we've already had sent a communication, we sent the resolution the council adopted back in December, as well as a letter that was executed by the mayor. And so I think it's appropriate that this be a part of that packet so that the Liquor Control Commission will understand where the city council is, what restrictions that they've agreed to operate under. And so I think if in fact the establishment does not abide by those, it seems very reasonable then for the Liquor Control Commission to expect something from the council to say, hey, this was the agreement, and they didn't follow it.
Thank you.
All right. As I stated before, as council and as a city body, we have numerous constituencies, the tenants, homeowners, and businesses, and we want everyone to be successful in their own right. And with respect to what went on tonight, I think we have addressed some of the triggers that created bad behavior. And I think the chief and the city attorney indicated there would be swift action if we see an uptick in anything that is detrimental to the city of Southfield, to the health of Southfield, and to the image and property values in the city of Southfield. So with respect to that, Council, can I get a motion to accept this resolution with the amendment spoke of?
What amendment are you talking about? The change?
Yeah,
The one that
tonight?
Councilman Mandelbaum suggested?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Mr. President?
And the volume?
We could certainly add something. I assume that wouldn't be a problem to indicate that the volume will not be excessively loud. We'll put something in there to that effect, the music.
Volume,
Okay.
not excessive.
With the background that we have a professional police chief and a professional police force that has recommended that this agreement is something that he can live with and his force can live with, I'm going to make a motion that we approve this resolution for Bar 7 and ask for it to be passed.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Frazier, second by Mr. Fakasi, that we approve the resolution as presented with the amendments. Council, your vote, please. Can we get a roll call, Madam?
Percassi?
Yes.
Frazier?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Mandelbaum?
Yes.
Brightwell?
Yes,
Resolution passed as amended for the agreement.
it is passed. With that, I think we can end this session. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.